Interesting times we live in. We live in such interesting times. We got a president. It's like, is he telling the truth? Isn't he? It's like we can't even tell. We don't even know if he's, what's reality? What's real? What is this? Should we believe the words he's saying, or is he just selling us a bill of goods? This president is such a hypocrite, okay? So I'm talking about Jill Stein's recount, okay? So Jill Stein's going to recount the election. She filed a lawsuit. Now, Donald said he was going to file a lawsuit. He said he wasn't going to accept the election results. So he said he was going to do the same thing Jill Stein was doing. Then when Jill does it, he acts like it's the worst thing in the world. He is such a hypocrite. He bitches about the election being fraudulent, that it's rigged. He even claimed that millions had voted illegally. That's why Hillary beat him on the popular vote, right? Hillary got 2 to 3 more million votes than he did. Oh, that's because he claims there were millions that voted illegally. If you found out who those millions who voted illegally were, then you could find out that actually he won the popular vote, yet he's going to be opposed to the recount. What happened to unearthing those illegal voters? He says he wants to, there's millions voting illegally. Let's find out who they are and get those votes thrown out. Then he can, win the popular vote. Yeah, he didn't give a shit. He's lying. Millions voted illegally. He could have, won the popular vote, but he's lying. He's a hypocrite. So Jill Stein on her recount vote. Jill Stein is a badass, okay? In 2012, she didn't even raise $1 million. 2016, she raised $3.5 million. And then for the recount campaign, she got 140,000 donors and raised over $7 million. She raised more money for the recount effort than she did both of her campaigns combined. In Michigan, there are 75,000 votes that were blank. And that's the sky high in Detroit, crazy things in Detroit. So there's 75,000 votes which are blank, and those are 7 times the margin of difference in Michigan. So there is a reason to do this. It had purpose. In Toledo, 2004, there were 90,000 votes that were marked blank. And if that was changed, then Ohio would have gone to John Kerry, and John Kerry could have won, but he quit the day after too. Just like every loser before him did. So Jill Stein is a badass for a million reasons, but this recount, so some people want to ask, well, how come you just, recounted the states, the 3 Donald Trump states, the traditional Democratic working class states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, that went over to Donald Trump and ultimately gave him the White House. If you care so much about the integrity of the elections and you want it to be free and fair, how come you're only challenging the states that Donald had won in? Well, those were, the states that had flipped, they gave him the White House. So by recounting those states, it makes you relevant. You could overturn the election. So she intended on auditing the entire system, all 50 states, beginning with those 3 Trump states. But she planned on, once going from one to the next, and then, essentially auditing all 50 U.S. states. Because all the states don't have instant runoff voting, so basically every state in the union besides Maine doesn't have fair elections. So this is a historical thing. It's, one of probably the biggest recount efforts in the United States history ever. So everything she was doing was absolutely historic. She got $7.3 million from 161,000 small donors in under 3 weeks, and the average donation is $45. So 161,000 small donors, average donation $45. This is people powered. This is the American people that said, hey, we want to recount this election. Let's see what's going on. 80% of American voters were disgusted by the election. 90% lost faith in our political system. So the recount effort was more important than ever. So Jill Stein's a fighter. Jill Stein is a fighter, whereas Hillary Rodham Clinton quit the day after the 2016 election, just gives up, right? Just like John Kerry, Hubert Humphrey, they quit the day after their respective 2004 and 1968 general elections too. Why? Why would they do that? You spent millions of dollars, you spent hours on the campaign, days, weeks, months, 2 years for 2016. If it was really important for you to win, 2 years out, getting all that funds, all those speeches, all that time and effort. If you truly want to win, why would you quit the day after the general election? Even fucking Hubert Humphrey, who killed the 60s off worse than Charles Manson did. Hubert Humphrey. He took the baton from RFK. RFK was running for the Democratic nominee in 1968, and he was assassinated because of his support for giving Israel weapons of war. 1968, the same year MLK was assassinated too, and the best the Democrats could give us was Hubert motherfucking Humphrey. What a weenie. Hubert Humphrey is a douchebag weenie of epic proportions. He gave a closing concession speech saying, hey, I want y'all to be a little bit happy after you left. You just fucking lost, you piece of shit. You lost the 60s to Nixon. You want us to be happy? Why don't you win the thing? If you would have won the damn presidency, then we could have been happy. So Jill Stein's a fighter, and she's changed the game completely. You're going to see recount efforts after every one of these election days, which there should be. And if the recount says that it's, everything ran as it should, then that, more power to the system. So to have a recount, effort that's just so ridiculous that people are going to sit there, the criticisms against Jill is just, they're all across the board. She was getting criticized from the left and the right. If you look at how things are going now, though, Jill Stein changed the game in a million ways. Her platform now is the platform of the Democrats. She was talking about a Green New Deal. She was championing peace, fighting for the working class. She was in favor of student debt cancellation, single-payer universal health care, just like Bernie care. Everything Jill Stein was talking about in 2016 is what the Dems are talking about now, today, for the 2020 election. So Jill Stein changed the game majorly with her 2016 recount of Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Every candidate should fight for a recount. That strengthens our democracy. It strengthens our institutions. Therefore, it'll strengthen the trust in our institutions. If you're a fighter, don't cop out the day after. At least wait until the Electoral College votes. That's when the presidential election actually happens, when the Electoral College votes. That's where the constitutionally qualified voters for the U.S. president actually votes. Nobody who votes in America actually counts except for those 500 people in the Electoral College. So at least wait till the Electoral College. But nope, just like Al Gore, he waited until the Supreme Court made a decision, then just gave up, right? Just gave up right then and there. We've had close elections. The Supreme Court never intervened before, but all of a sudden. So, why cop out? Why quit? As soon as possible. Why quit? You can keep fighting up until the Electoral College. That's what they did in, 1824. It went up, the Electoral College couldn't decide, and it went to the House of Representatives. So, let's just keep pushing this election all the way to the end. To just quit the day after. To just accept defeat so swiftly. To give up so easily. Jesus Christ. God damn, what the fuck? So what I would do, I would listen to each and every complaint about the elections and investigate each and every one, call for a recount if there's major discrepancies. Every vote in America would be important to me. Every single solitary one. If there's one person's vote not counted, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So I would fight to make sure every person's vote counts. And then the hypocrisy. Donald Trump, he lost the national popular vote by 2 to 3 million. He said if he lost, he wouldn't accept the election results. Right? So he'd do the same thing Jill Stein's doing. File a lawsuit in court. He said our election system's a rigged system. Therefore, a lawsuit, could be warranted. If he lost, he was going to sue the system. It's a rigged system. He said this over and over again. And yet, when it comes down to it, for this recount, he's going to be opposed to the recount. Right? He reserves the right to contest the election. Only candidates can call for a recount. Donald Trump also intelligently threatened to run as an independent if the Republicans ever fucked with him. So Donald Trump wanted to keep that option as leverage, which is smart. If the GOP fucks with him, then he could just, run as an independent. Bernie Sanders could have done that, and he could have won as an independent in 2016. So Donald Trump didn't trust the Republican elections, nor did he trust the general elections. And then, unless he won, he won. Well, then that means the elections are 100% sound. Yeah, what a fair guy. If he lost, he would have sued, yet he won. Therefore, it's the, perfect election integrity now. In one of his Twitter proclamations, he said November 27th, 2016, he said specifically, because he lost the popular vote, but he was like, no, it wasn't that I lost the popular vote. There's millions of people who voted illegally. That's what he tweeted. There's millions of people who voted illegally. There was another Donald Trump voter that had claimed that he saw buses of illegal voters being bussed in to go vote. So you got, what, millions of illegal voters? At least 2 to 3 million, right? Because you got to overturn losing the popular vote to Hillary Clinton, but no to a recount. No to a recount. So let's find out if he actually won the national popular vote, right? Why just recount those 3 states? Let's recount the entire, 50-nifty United States. Hillary, Democrats had dismissed the recount, just like Ajuma Baraka. No, hold on. Hillary Democrats, they dismissed the recount. A lot of people said this is just Hillary trying to do her thing, right? Trying to take the election back. Hillary had very little to do with the recount. They call it the Ajuma Baraka Jill Stein project, which is ridiculous because Ajuma Baraka was opposed to it, and so is Chris Hedges. So, when Jill Stein is finally politically relevant, Ajuma Baraka, Chris Hedges stand strong against Jill Stein. Hillary's lawyers they give tacit support. They tweeted, some staffer tweeted saying that they supported the thing. They didn't help Jill Stein at all, but they were posed. The lawyers of Hillary Clinton were posed to reap the rewards of a successful recount. So if Jill Stein was successful, then Hillary's lawyers would have pounced. So Hillary wasn't behind the recount at all. Very little, very tiny bit. She just passively just said, yeah, I support it. Not even out loud. Put it in the mouth of a staffer. Tucker Carlson's the only person that's going to defend Jill Stein, saying that the recount would be good for democracy. That's a very, the Russians hacking the elections, that's a very serious crime. Let's see if the Russians actually hacked the election. Let's see if these diabolical machines are working. Let's see if we got a functioning democracy. So Tucker Carlson said it would be good for democracy. Brian Kilmeade, he said it was terrible for democracy. But that's because Donald was bitching about it, so Brian Kilmeade is just going to be a ditto head. It's great for democracy. After the recount, we're going to find out that in one state, Donald actually got 100 more votes. In another state, Hillary got 100 more votes. So ultimately, those are very tiny differences, so the system had worked. The system had worked. They put aside whatever Jill Stein's objections were. So the system worked. So all that bitching for nothing. The Electoral College, they tried to overthrow the decision by getting people in the Electoral College to vote differently. Hillary had already dropped out. If they would stay to the Electoral College, that's another chance. We have 2 elections, right? There's the national vote, then there's the Electoral College. You could get, try to get some of those 500 to switch over if you want a chance. So Chris Hedges, Ajuma Baraka, they just said her efforts weren't good enough. So she was supposed to do it this way and that way, but she had to try. She had to do something. So while they were sitting there, arguing amongst themselves, when she's politically relevant, her own vice president, her own, running mate had spoke out against her, and Chris Hedges. So it's just incredible because how big of a hypocrite do all these assholes have to be? Jesus, Donald said there's, millions of illegal voters. Millions illegally voted. He wouldn't accept the election. He would file the lawsuit. He said it was a rigged system. He reserves the right to contest the election. So, voter fraud, millions of illegal voters, yet he scoffs at the recount. Well, which is it, fat boy? 80% of the United States was disgusted with this election. 90% of Americans lost faith in this election. So, Jill Stein changed the game. We don't do recounts typically. We will now. We always will now. In terms of the money raised, it's profitable to fight for election integrity after the election. It's profitable. It's good for fame. It's good for, politics. It's good, honest politics. She was able to raise $7 million. That means people wanted to know. People wanted to know for sure, is this how it actually turned out? Let's do a recount. Let's do an audit of the system. And then after the recount, now you could say, okay, Donald, you're more of a winner than you were before. Now you've solidly, you got your victory more solidly than what you had before. So that was good for Donald, but he bitched the whole fucking time. If it's a rigged system and there's all these illegal voters, millions of illegal voters, and yet he's opposed to the recount. So, you know, it's pretty remarkable. Donald Trump is on the same side as Chris Hedges and Ajuma Baraka, and yet Tucker Carlson and Jill Stein are standing up for democracy. So, Jill Stein's a fighter, and with the whole recount effort, she's changed the game from here on out, forever and ever until the end of time. So, Jill Stein, my precious revolutionary, I don't know. So I guess, yeah, peace out.